Well, Penn State's offense looked pedestrian for 57 minutes, but boy, did they look great in the end. And to pull out a victory, they escape enemy territory with another dramatic victory.
There are all sorts of ways to win, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely is right. We'll talk about it next. Blue-White Tailgate's coming up. And we welcome you to Blue-White Tailgate presented by Coors Light. Trey, Bauer, Todd, Sadowski. I'm Steve Jones. Great to have you with us. Well, as I said, there are all sorts of ways to win. This is another one.
You know, a win is a win is a win. It doesn't have to be pretty. They overcame adversity, and I think they did a good job.
Yeah.
I like it when a team struggles a little bit, but they find a way to make it happen in the end. In 57 minutes of the game, the offense didn't look like they had a chance to make it into the end zone, and then they needed it, and they got it in the end.
Actually, I like when it looks easy. All right, so let's get to the Stocker drive of the game, brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet, located across the Nittany Mall on the Benner Pike. Here it is, the game-winning drive. Quick in-cut, great catch by Geno Lewis, breaks three, 53 yards by Geno Lewis, taking it down to the Rutgers 27-yard line to jumpstart the drive. Look, takes it in high in the air, takes the catch, safety late getting over there as they were playing cover two on that play. James Franklin says, rev it up. Okay, so they rev it up. And then Christian Hackenberg struggles. And this was a fabulous job. In the NFL, that may have been a sack, but in college football, no. Deshaun Hamilton takes the ball to the 19-yard line. So Penn State with a 3rd and 2. Jesse James, touchdown celebration. Wait a minute. Flag at the line of scrimmage. This is demoralizing, except when you have this play right here. Down to the 5-yard line, 24-yard play to Geno Lewis. Again, they convert the 3rd down. Again, cover two, safety late getting over on the play, no rotation. He finally shows up there. And Penn State is set up with the opportunity to take the lead. Bill Belton sweeps to the left, slips and falls on the play. So on 2nd down, look at the hole. We've talked about the running game all year long. That time, one that came through big. Christian Hackenberg now, 4 times in his career in the 4th quarter has engineered a final drive to either force overtime, which resulted in a win, or to win the game.
He certainly didn't look shaky on that last drive, and I love the way that they stayed committed to the run in the end. You didn't know what they were going to do. Obviously, they were going with Hackenberg having struggles with the run, but boy, he just read it, and it was wide open. Belton took it in, the New Jersey native, right? Took it in for the victory.
And the defense, Trey, sets all of this up. The defensive performance as you saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're very, very aggressive. They had a great scheme in place. I think that were very well prepared, and they had a lot of intensity. And I think that, you know, when you're playing defense, you have to be intense.
Frankly Speaking is brought to you by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. James Franklin on the win.
The issues are still there. We have to get better. But the most important part is we're able to come on the road in a hostile environment and stick together. Thought the defense played extremely well from top to bottom.
Michigan, Illinois, Central Florida, and now at Rutgers. Todd, in the clutch, take us home.
You see a pattern forming, do you? With Christian Hackenberg, and then also Coach Franklin getting the guys prepared to say, look, don't keep believing in yourselves, keep getting it done. And what we're finding about this team is that they are certainly clutch performers.
We just had to face adversity, and it was time to bow up, and we had no other choice. And our backs were against the wall, and we needed to do what we had to do.
Seems like we've heard that before, probably after the Nittany Lions season opening victory against Central Florida. Another thrilling win in the late stages of the game. The coach takes a shot at describing this pattern.
Number one, I think we've been able to kind of wear some people down. I think our guys have done a great job of having a sense of urgency when we've needed it most.
On Saturday night, they get what they need in the final minutes. Twice. Hackenberg's TD strike to Jesse James is nullified by a holding penalty. No matter, the Lions scored anyway. Coach Franklin and his staff instilled this belief in themselves months ago.
Even though things didn't go as we planned for it to go, after halftime, we just kept going. We stuck with it and just kept doing what we had to do.
When spring ball came around, we finally got a feel for him, and we started to buy into his processes and things like that. And when we were down against Rutgers, we just, didn't get down on ourselves, really. And Coach Franklin, I don't think he had any doubt in his mind that we were just going to be just fine, and eventually we would pick things up in the second half.
I like how this team really picks each other up. Not only did they have to get there once in the end zone, they had to get there twice with the holding penalty. But Trey, from a defensive standpoint, you guys know there's certain people. Get them the ball, right? Late in the game, just get us another opportunity. And then what is it like on the sidelines as a defense to watch the offense go down there and win that game?
Well, I mean, again, the best defense is a really good offense, and it's an offense that actually turns over the chains, and they move the ball, and they eat up the clock. I mean, the fact is that if the offense is doing what they're supposed to do, and certainly at Penn State, that we used to continually run the ball, but the fact is if you eat up the clock, it's all good for the defense.
First 3-0 start for the Nittany Lions since 2009. Usually a 3-0 start means something good for Penn State. You can see what they've done, and 4 out of the 5 happen to be New Year's Day bowl games in terms of 3-0 starts. Not bad. Here's the other part. I think it's a real tribute, to Dwight Galt and his strength and conditioning crew. Rutgers looked lightning quick, I thought, in the first half, especially in defense.
Yep.
I think Penn State wore them down, and Rutgers got tired in the second half.
Penn State absolutely wore them down. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind watching the game. I was watching on TV. I was not at the game, but you could just tell that those kids were gassed at the end, and our guys were not.
Yeah.
Well, they held them to less than 100 yards total offense in the second half. And this has happened before. This happened in Central Florida. This happened in Akron. These guys look strong. They look fit. And I think it's a great point, Steve. They're ready to go. They may not have all the depth that they want and they're going to have here in the near future, but the guys they do have, they're ready to play all 4 quarters.
Yeah, they only gave up 2 first downs in the second half. 2. The entire second half. It's a brilliant performance. We talked about the need to get takeaways. I think 5 fills the bill.
Yes. I mean, we talk about that, and again, it's like, for them to perform, in the clutch where they have to make a play, and they seem to always come up with a play, and that's what you need to do.
It just instills confidence. And look, the defensive line sets up the secondary and all that stuff. I mean, the secondary guys will tell you. The defensive line, those 4 guys, fabulous.
Intense pressure they had on Gary Nova, and really comes down to the fact that you get down to the wire. We've talked a lot about coming out with a victory. Christian Hackenberg, a guy who can rely on the fact that I've done it before, and he goes and does it again. And then you have Gary Nova on the other side, who's been pulled and yanked a couple years in a row. What does he go to in his brain? And he goes to the well. He goes to unsuccessful moments, and that's what he has to rely on.
Umass is coming up next, and for the Nittany Lions, their final non-conference game before they get to the meat of the conference schedule. They still have Temple down the road, obviously, in November. We'll talk about Umass a little bit later, but coming up next, we will talk about defense. Nothing to be defensive about this group as we continue on Blue White Tailgate. Defense, defense, defense. When you're playing great defense and you played on one of the best of all time, can you see it in their eyes on the other side?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that when you have a team on the ropes and you're shutting them down, like they know that they know that you're beating their butts. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, the fact is that you know that you can take it to them and you can shut them down.
I like how you cleaned it up on TV. That's good. I like that. I like it. He's cleaned it up, man.
Absolutely.
We've been a good influence on him.
You know that they know. I think that says it all. You know that they know.
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And John Stroh knows secondary play, and he takes a look at what Penn State has done in the secondary.
You don't have to be Joe Paterno to recognize the Penn State defense is pretty good, thanks in part to a stout defensive line. But look closer, and you'll see the secondary looks pretty strong as well. The Penn State DBs flexed their muscle on Saturday in Piscataway, especially Trevor Williams, with 2 interceptions and his Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week selection.
I played for all my teammates, but for my closest friends, even the seniors, like Mike Hall and Zettel CJ, all those guys. they've been here for the ups and downs of the program, and on their senior, on their last ride, I want to be able to send them out on a good note. So each and every Saturday, everything I do it for them.
The Nittany Lions secondary walks out of High Point Solution Stadium with 4 picks, a win under their belt, and the rest of the team taking note.
Defensive backs have been playing well. I think that's a big part of our defense, and you'll see continuously progressing over the next couple weeks. Coach Jupe is very versatile in what he does, and he's going to put them in position to make plays.
In order for the defense to reach its full potential, the secondary must continue to create turnovers.
Our goal is to be a championship defense, and you got to create turnovers, and that's our goal for every game. I don't think we had a lot of turnovers coming into the game, but we wanted to make sure if the goal was 5, we believe that we can get 5 turnovers.
Despite their 0-3 record, the secondary will face a challenge this week against a UMass team that is averaging 34.5 points per game in losses to Colorado and Vanderbilt. For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm John Stroh.
Well, no doubt, secondary play outstanding, in part because of the pressure put on, and also with the Defensive Player of the Week in the Big Ten is also our family clothesline Defensive Player of the Week. Makes it easier when the conference picks it for us. Trevor Williams with 2 interceptions. He has 4 career interceptions, 3 in the state of New Jersey. He had 1 last year against Syracuse at the Meadowlands. Now that's a stat. Here's downfield. I mean, just great coverage down there. But again, the ability, he now sees it, Todd, and he believes it. That's why he's making plays.
It's a lot of it is about confidence, and what we found out is that this secondary can really catch the ball, can't they? I mean, we had some defensive guys move to the offensive line. If we ever needed help at wide receiver, some of these guys certainly are showing that they can catch the ball and get themselves in position. But you said they're seeing it, and I think the entire secondary is seeing it. You know, Coach Franklin always starts out his press conference, talks about penalties, talks about the turnover battle, and he mentions explosive plays. And the defense kept the team to 2 explosive plays. They met their goal, and it's about the secondary not getting beat deep, keeping everything in front of them, and making the tackles as soon as they're caught.
The Marshall transfer, Blake Fernapple, of course, will run the show for UMass. They want to throw the ball. They have struggled running the football, and Jamal Wilson, who leads them in rushing, will not play in this game because he got hurt. Anthony Zettel is a defensive end. Made an interception last year against Michigan when they were able to drop him in coverage. What does it take to go from D end to playing D tackle?
Well, I think the most important thing is that he has a lot of energy. He performs well on every single play. He plays hard, and as Coach Franklin has said many times, that he has he's got a high motor, and he's always going. And I think you can pretty much play anywhere when you have that combination.
Motor and leverage. He's got a lot of leverage, and James Franklin knows he has a special player inside in number 98.
He was an athletic defensive end, but by moving him inside, he's now become an even more athletic defensive tackle. He's got a tremendous motor. He's got really good quickness. He's really sudden off of the ball. His spin move, I think, is really, really good, which is one of his big plays last week he made off of his spin move. So his tenacity is unbelievable.
And indeed, a big safety becomes an outside linebacker now. A big outside linebacker becomes a defensive end, and a big defensive end now becomes a defensive tackle. That's the state of today's game. You're trying to get more speed at every position.
Well, and I like the word that Coach Franklin used with tenacity, and that's all the way through. And that message, that intensity comes from the coaching staff as well. We talked about these guys being fit, being in condition. We also talk about the numbers. They want to get more people on the field. Trey talked about Zettel not taking any plays off. It's important for all these guys to know you give everything you have on every play, and if you're tired, get off the field. We'll get somebody fresh in there. So if you don't have guys taking plays off, you've got everybody running 100% on every play.
Yeah, Wooten now is spelling Mike Hull middle linebacker, keeping him fresh in the 4th quarter to go with Wortman and Bell. All right, hit of the week. All right, hit of the week as we take a look at, obviously, some of the big plays right here. Stuck in the backfield, Adrian Amos on Paul James right there. I mean, this had a series of these. Yeah, throw it out there. He's decked. Okay, and right here, this is my choice. Down you go. Okay, Alanian. My selection is that last one.
I agree. I mean, the fact is he chased him down and he put his paws on him and he took him down. I mean,
I like
that's what
number
he's
3
supposed to do.
too, because he wrapped him up. It wasn't just a good forearm shiver. You wrap him up. You hit him and you make sure he goes down.
All right, special teams, what he calls the we fence. All right, 2 block kicks, block field goal, block punt. Can't have this if you're going to win games. I mean, you feel like you got away with it in each case, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can get away with it when you're playing Rutgers. You can get away with it when you're playing Akron. You know, you're not going to get away with it playing Michigan, playing Ohio State, playing the schedule that we play. It's not going to happen.
Punt return thing. I want to get James Franklin's take first, and then we'll talk about it. On the punt returns and Jesse Della Valle.
Jesse Della Valle does a great job of going up and catching punts and making really good decisions. But there's a couple of the short ones where I think he can really bring his value, where he runs up in there and either somebody makes contact with him and we get a penalty, or he's able to catch that ball before it hits the ground, and that maybe saves us 15 to 20 yards.
That's the big point to me. There was one punt that he backed off, it hit, and it rolled 20 yards. Joey Roth did not do a good job of punting, all right? You can't get returns based on short punts like that into traffic.
Well, and it's tough to make those decisions. That's not an easy job to be a punt returner, because you got to make that determination quickly. You have to also evaluate what's in front of you. If it is a short kick, guys, get away from it. Do I go get it? I thought he usually makes good decisions. I thought there was one decision in the game where he didn't make a fair catch. That was pretty risky. He could have had the ball knocked out. So, yeah, it's an area they need to address, absolutely, with punt returns. And it's going to get better, but it needs to get better quickly, because they're reaching conference play. And these are the kinds of things, the little things, that can cost you a game.
Oncott's return punts. They didn't let you return punts.
No, I'm sure they didn't want me to return punts. But, I mean, again, it's like you got to think about the fact that the kids are 19, 20 years old, and, you know, they're going to get better.
We'll take a look at the offense next as we continue on Blue White Tailgate. You know, when you have a quarterback that's the coolest cat on the field, I mean, seriously, I mean, you think about that. That's where I want the coolest cat in the field. I want it to be my quarterback, where when everything is breaking around him, he's got control of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that he's only played 15 college games.
Right.
I mean, the kid is only a sophomore. Everyone's talking about it being the #1 pick in the draft. It's like, just give me a break. The kid is doing fine. He's going to only get better. I get a little concerned with him turning the ball over, though.
Yeah. Now, he had the one, and that was a deflection, just a bit high, but that was it. I can live with one.
Yes.
All right? I think anybody can. Yeah. Although, you know what's interesting? 16 winning quarterbacks in the NFL this past weekend. You know how many interceptions the 16 combined to throw?
You're going to tell us, right?
1.
Wow.
Yeah. 16 winning quarterbacks in the NFL combined for
You are
one
bringing
interception.
it today. Yes. You are bringing it
no,
today.
No, I mean, no, seriously, I'm 98 on the slow gun.
You got some personal producer giving you, I don't get these numbers. That's good stuff right there.
But he's taking too many hits.
Yeah. It's a little bit too much pressure. Look, I mean, it's all about getting the running game to alleviate some of that pressure. But you mentioned that there's such intangibles to the quarterback position, and Christian Hackenberg has all of those intangibles that he brings out to the field. You keep the guys calm in the huddle. You understand what's going on. You slow down the game around you in those key moments. You tune out the noise that's going on around you, and you make things happen at the end of the game. Even though you have a whole history of not getting to the end zone for 57 minutes, you can make it happen when it gets to the end. It's amazing, the guys. He's got over 1,000 yards passing and only 4 touchdown passes. Yeah. But the number that really counts, 3 wins. Right. That's what he's got.
And for James Franklin, that's the bottom line on his quarterback.
He really has been great, making plays with his feet, moving the pocket, things like that, extending plays. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, we've kind of talked about it to nauseum. I mean, we've talked about it enough. We got to get the running game going, and we got to protect the quarterback. We take great pride in those things.
No question about that. Now, the offensive line. One of the things when you look at, Penn State on first downs averaging 7.5 yards a play. On third down, they're averaging almost 6 yards a play. On second down, under 4. Right? That's a key setup down that Penn State's not getting enough production out of.
Yeah, well, they're getting no production. I mean, the fact is that they are They are pass blocking well. They are not run blocking well, and I think that's a big issue, and we've talked about that, from the beginning of the season.
Right, no question. Now, let's take a look at some of the numbers as to what they've done offensively. I mean, there's Penn State down at 13, 117 among FBS schools. And, of course, every week, James Franklin gets asked, what about the offensive line?
They got to trust one another, and they got to be willing to communicate and work together and make sure that that information gets communicated from the front side tight end all the way to the back side tight end or tackle, depending on the formation.
Yeah, I mean, no question about that. And now the running backs have to take advantage of this.
Yeah, and I think this week is critical for the offensive line. They get an opponent that they should be able to push around. Some of those communication errors, they can start working those things out before you hit the meat of the Big Ten schedule. This is a critical week for the offensive line. And for some of those guys that are struggling, they better get it turned around and get it going, because the coaches will get somebody else in there to do the job. They want those guys to get it done. They want a cohesive unit. You don't want a lot of turnover at that position up front. But this is the week to make it happen against the Minutemen.
Family Clothesline Offensive Player of the Week, wide receiver Geno Lewis, who in the clutch stepped up and made plays. Quick in route, goes high in the air to make the catch and turns it into a 53-yard play that changes the tone of the drive to set everything up. And look at it. Safety's late. He's not. And now, here it is, 3rd down, 12. Let's go to Lewis again. 5-yard line. He has great hands. He has huge hands. And just makes one big play after another. It's cover 2 here. Safety's late. And look at the perfect throw by Hackenberg. That makes life a little bit easier when it's laid in like that. Now, the other side, when you have a complement on the other side in Deshaun Hamilton, what does that do to free people up?
Well, I think it frees up, not only the other receiver, but also frees up the running game. I mean, the fact is that, if you have last year it was at Allen Robinson and no one else, and now they've got 2 quality wideouts, and then and their tight ends, they got a lot of production on their tight ends as well.
Yeah, no question about that. And then you look at how it's playing out. He's got 2 guys he trusts right there, along with the tight ends that Trey just pointed out.
I got a stat for you. It's not as good as your quarterback stat that you threw out, but it's pretty good. Geno Lewis, 298 receiving yards in the second half. That's pretty amazing. He's averaging almost 100 a game in the second half. The critical moments, the big times, you can go to Geno Lewis. And you mentioned Allen Robinson, Trey. Looks a little bit like it. He's got a long way to go to get the A-Rob status, but those passes, the fade pattern, the cover 2 that he beat in that final drive, very Allen Robinson-esque.
I'll tell you where Robinson was really at his best. Of course, he can make big catches, but his ability on that slip screen to pick his way through traffic. Deshaun Hamilton's getting a little bit better at that. Once he gets that, they're going to be fine. All right, recruiting is coming up next, and they continue to recruit. Now they know they have a few additional scholarships to work with. We'll talk about that on Blue White Tailgate, presented by Coors Light.
Oh man, the glasses, well, we got practice after this, and the glasses, they came out post-game for most of the games because I like to, relax my eyes, so I wear contacts, things like that. So, and I couldn't bring them out today because we got practice right after this, but they'll be back for sure.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. It is time to talk recruiting. This segment sponsored by Central PA Dock and Door. And we bring in Andrew Callista to talk about recruiting. Always a lot of meat on this bone, man. There's more scholarships that are coming for Penn State, and a big win on the road in a recruiting hotbed.
Oh, yeah, you got to love that. As the recruits were walking off the field at High Point Solution Stadiums, even they were talking about how Penn State came back. I love the sign by the Penn State fans in the stands. Dominate New Jersey. That's what Coach Franklin is doing right now. 4 of the top 7 out of the Garden State are committed to Penn State. The 3 that are not, 1 going to Alabama, 1 going to Ohio State, 1 going to Big Blue up in Michigan.
And the message that these guys get when they watch Penn State is young guys are performing and they are playing. And Coach Franklin said that's what he's looking for, guys that can get in there right away and a certain type of characteristic that gets them onto the field.
I love bright-eyed guys, and what I mean by that is guys that are locked in, that are excited, that are attentive. I don't like these sleepy-eyed, drooping in their seats. We don't allow that, but we also, that's a big part when we're recruiting as well. I want guys that got really strong, powerful body language. I think that's very important in how you present yourself.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Coach Franklin talking about that kind of stuff. That's the kind of guy that he is, wide-eyed, energetic, and that's what he likes to see, attention to details out of his guys.
Yeah, you see that with the young guys on the roster right now. Deshaun Hamilton, yes, he's an O'Brien recruit. Chris Godwin, yes, he's an O'Brien recruit, but they come from the same lineage under Ralph Regent. Christian Campbell, Grant Haley, those are Franklin guys. They are all getting significant playing time. We saw Christian Campbell make the big tackle on kickoff this week. Attention to details. Coach Franklin loves it, and he trusts these guys a lot.
Well, that's what happens when a new coaching staff comes in, is they will talk about guys that fit in and guys that don't. So some of the names that you thought of under Coach O'Brien that, well, they're the future of Penn State. Not really. Some other guys that are rolling in, maybe not fitting into the new system. But somebody they do think that's fitting into the new system, they do have another commitment to talk about.
Yeah, they did get a commitment, of course, out of New Jersey, number 13th ranked prospect in the state, Daquan Kelly out of Union City, New Jersey. He's 6'3", 201-pound athlete. Should fit well into the Coach Shoop system on defense, especially that star position that we've talked about, Todd, early on in his career. He's a very rangy defensive back, great tackler, as you can see here on film, possibly like Koa Farmer, growing into that outside linebacker position. A lot of Penn State fans remember when Gerald Hodges came here, he was originally a safety out of New Jersey, then converted to the outside linebacker position. And Syracuse fans, they're all upset about this commitment. You know what I say? Get over it. Stop whining like that clown shoe wearing basketball coach you got up there in the Carrier Dome. Maybe if you guys ever host College Game Day, you'll actually start getting some big time commitments. And by the way, I'm a Syracuse alum, just taking a shot at my alma mater.
Never seen you so excited, Callista. You couldn't wait to take that pot shot at the Orange. I tell you.
They took a lot of my money, you know, for tuition.
Of course,
so I gotta get
of course
it back
they did.
somehow.
Okay, finally, quickly, any visitors that we can expect?
Big visitor this weekend, Brandon McElween, 2016 quarterback prospect out of Council Rock North, one of the top passers in the state.
Okay, Health South injury update. Again, not getting a lot of information from the Nittany Lions coaching staff, but they do appear to be pretty healthy. The usual suspects on this list, some of the guys that we can't expect to see this year, but overall, this team is staying pretty healthy for Penn State, and we're talking about keeping fresh bodies, and that's all plays into recruiting. This is the message you want to get out to these guys. Come and you will play.
That's right. I just love Christian Campbell. I go back to it. Coach said he was going to get playing time. 2 big tackles in that game last week.
All right, Andrew Callista, thank you very much. That is the recruiting segment. We're going to hear a lot more about Penn State's matchup with UMass coming up as the Blue-White Tailgate continues.
Penn State in the clutch, winning, and it drew great ratings, in fact, on BTN. A 4-0 in Philadelphia, which is a record number for BTN, a 2-0, a 2-2, I think, in New York, also a record for BTN there. And joining us from BTN is Tyoka Jackson, one of Penn State's greats. Ty, great to hear from you.
Hey, Steve, how you doing, buddy? Glad to be on.
Okay. If anybody appreciates great defense, it's Trey Bauer, my co-host, and you. As you watch that from a defensive point of view, what did you think of Penn State's performance?
I thought it was old school, of course. I'm an old school guy, and I remembered, obviously, many defensive battles growing up, watching the school that I fell in love with, and clearly that was what we hung our hat on. And once I got there, nothing changed, and that just reminded me of some of the old days. You got to win ball games like that. It's not always going to be pretty. You're going to be, especially in a rough environment. They went on the road playing against what some people from Rutgers camp were calling their biggest game ever in the history of their program. So, prime time, national TV. Rutgers played well enough to win at times, and so it was going to be one of those battles. Couldn't run the football on offense, but defensively, what a great performance. Created a lot of turnovers, and that helped them win.
Let's talk about the front four for Penn State. C.J. Alani and Deion Barnes playing that end spot, which you know so well. Then Anthony Zettel, who's converted from end to tackle, and Austin Johnson. When you can get pressure with 4, how much does that change the dynamics of the defense?
Well, it sets everything up. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And most programs especially can't recruit guys who can get to the quarterback without the help of blitzing and scheming. And so that really allows our defensive back half to play coverage, and you saw what the result was. I mean, that quarterback from Rutgers who came in was as hot as anybody, was having a career year. He was really well coached and was really setting setting it on fire for those first few games. And we were able to pressure him with 4 guys, and it forced him into making really tight throws, tough decisions, and you know, our corners were the beneficiary. Excuse me, especially Trevor Williams. So rushing with 4 is what I was born and bred in high school, played in defense like that. We converted to a 4-3 when I got to Penn State. I was fortunate enough to play in the Tampa 2 for 11 of 12 years of my career in the NFL, and it was just all predicated on being able to rush 4 guys and how that set the table for your entire defense. And then you can do things off of that, blitz off of that, and play around with your coverages and really screw with a quarterback.
Now let's flip it to the other part of it. You mentioned Trevor Williams in that answer, Ty. We know Jordan Lucas is a good, solid corner who makes plays. Williams had been a guy who's always been in position but hasn't always made the play. Now he's making plays. When you have 2 corners that can make plays in one-on-one coverage, what does that do for the other 9 guys?
Well, again, yeah, that tells you that you've got confidence. Now, so you can mix in blitzes when you need to if you're a coordinator. And certainly, as a defensive lineman, when you get pressure and it results in a turnover, if you can't get that sack but it results in a turnover, it just gives you a lot of confidence in your teammates. You just know that, hey, if I don't get there, we've got guys where the ball will end up on the ground or end up going in the other direction in our favor. So, I mean, that's a huge confidence builder, and I'm really happy for Trevor. And Jordan Lucas is a fine football player. I really do like him. He's a tough guy, can really tackle, which you don't see anymore in the corner position. I think his future is going to be playing a cover 2 corner, a guy who will see the ball being thrown and come up and make tackles in space because he's a really physical guy. He studies. He works hard. So, you know, Penn State's lucky to have 2 solid corners, and you'll see this defense. It's already been really good against the run, and if that continues, and that's a huge part of it too, Steve, you got to be able to knock out the run and create obvious passing downs where this front can really rush. So if they continue to knock that run out, I think you'll see this pass defense get better and better.
When you have a quarterback that now has 4 fourth-quarter comebacks in a brief career, what does that do for the confidence of a football team?
It's immense. Again, defensively, I remember when I got to the Rams and we started playing with that greatest show on turf, and it inspired me to go out and play harder on defense because I knew once we got the ball, we could do something with it. So if you can just do your job defensively, you know you've got a guy that'll bring it home even in clutch situations. So the kid Hackenberg is really a special guy. Now, you know, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves like some people and say he's the second or first or greatest ever and all that stuff. You know, it's too early for that. But what he is really a fine sophomore, I believe still a teenager, playing a really tough position, and they ask him to do a lot and haven't been able to run the football. So he hasn't had the compliment of being able to hand it off and get really positive yards early in downs. And so he really just shows how special he is. You know, he's thrown some interceptions, and obviously that needs to be addressed. But again, for a teenager, what they're asking him to do, I think the kid's showing that he's very special.
I've got 20 seconds for this answer. They had 53 scholarship guys on this trip. How remarkable is this run by Penn State?
Oh, it's unbelievable. And the cavalry's coming. You know, I think that Coach has put the entire country on notice that without the chains of restrictions and all the things, the negativity that's been around our program, now that all of that is starting to lift,
right.
Look out. He's got the number 5 recruiting class, number 1 in the conference. Look out. Penn State's coming on.
Ty, thanks so much. Appreciate the time, as always.
Steve, it was a pleasure, buddy. Thank you.
Tyoka Jackson from BTN. We'll come back with more after this. There are a lot of programs across the country that have made the move to FBS. Why? The money is there. You lose money in FCS. And you see teams, for example, in FCS make deep runs in the playoffs. Villanova's done this, Eastern Washington, North Dakota State. Each round you get, you lose more money. That's why Texas San Antonio goes to FBS. Umass is doing this. I mean, they really feel like they had to.
Well, and it's a program that can compete, too. They got a coach, Mark Whipple, who won the 1AA championship. It certainly can progress up to the FBS level. They're in the MAC. They're going to compete. They've had a couple of close games against Power 5 teams already with Colorado and Vanderbilt. They played BC, so they're playing a tough enough schedule. to get the job done. It's a program on the rise, I think.
And not only that, look at what he's done in the course of his career. He's been a winner when he's played. 121-59. Todd already referenced the 1AA National Championship at UConn. He won the national title, Atlantic 10 Coach of the Year. Had a good, strong career in the NFL. And Trey, he knows Penn State inside and out because his son Austin was here. He was at practices.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that he was at our practices, that his son was on the team. Little kind of inside information, but the fact is he's still coaching UMass and we're Penn State, and he's going to have problems.
Yeah, and it's a little different. They're 0-3, but again, high-scoring games. Led at the half against Colorado, lost by 3. Led at the half, Vanderbilt lost by 3. Missed a field goal on the final play badly. So it's not as if they're not competing. They are competing.
No, they're competing, but again, it's like you have to kind of keep it in perspective in the fact that, you know, Vanderbilt hadn't scored an offensive touchdown until they played UMass.
Right.
You know, Colorado is not Rashawn Salam, Colorado.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like let's just kind of manage expectations.
See, he's bringing stats too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I love it. And then name dropping, Rashawn Salam. That's an excellent one.
God, any other names you want to drop?
Well, how about Kajana Carter not winning the Heisman Trophy? Absolute joke.
How about if I drop?
Now he's bringing some bitterness too.
A lot of bitterness.
Oh, no.
Kajana should have won, for God's sakes.
Actually, I think he's right.
Yeah. He's bringing the truth there. Yeah. You got it.
Blake Fernapple, by the way, was at Marshall, transferred in. He's the guy that runs the show, and really they're going to put it on his arm to win this thing.
Well, they're going to have to, because with Penn State's defensive line, they're not going to be able to run the ball. They haven't run the ball successfully yet, and now they're going up against one of the better rushing defenses in the country at this particular point. The thing about Fernapple, too, is when you're throwing the ball as much as he is, you should be completing a few more passes. He's only about 50% completion rate, 48%.
Yeah, he's under the Mendoza
so
line.
you probably want to be a little bit more than half of your passes being completed. So for the defense, sets up kind of nicely for Penn State this weekend.
As a good target in Tarjay Sharp, very, very good. But Alex Kenny comes back. He transferred in, he's able to play right away, and he will start at wideout.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he's a local kid. You know, we want to wish him well, but not too well against us. I mean, I'm sure he's going to have a lot of friends and family at the game, but, you know, he's playing against Penn State, not Vanderbilt.
What a dust-off answer that was. Yeah, he's here. Okay, fine. Well, he's a great kid. It's great to have him back, by the way.
It'll be fun for him to go up against some of the guys he knows in the secondary, too. You know they're going to be talking to each other a little bit while they're out there having a good time.
Well, one of the guys he'll know is Brandon Bell, and Brandon Bell talked about facing UMass.
I see they're definitely a confident group. Like you said, they put a lot of points up, not afraid to put the ball downfield on any of the teams that they've played so far. So I think we're going to be prepared for whatever they throw at us.
Yep, and they'll be ready indeed. Now, of course, the offense trying to get in gear. Penn State, how important is it just to get a running game going, just from a confidence point of view?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they need to run the ball. They're going to be playing into the Big Ten schedule. They need to be able to eat up the clock, and it's really, really important for them to do well this week.
Jet and Giles, two good defensive backs, by the way, that I think fans should watch for. And Javon Santos-Knox, also a good outside linebacker. They play a 3-4 defense, so a little different look that Penn State will see in a 3-4. Deshaun Hamilton knows they just have to go out and get it done.
Well, the film that I watched so far, you know, I've basically seen that, you know, that their front eight, their guys in the box are pretty tough, and then they're, you know, the secondary, I think they played together for a little bit of time, and they have a few returning starters on the defense. So I think it's all about basically how much experience they've had so far, and right now, you know, just you're not taking them too lightly. I
think a game like this tests a team's maturity. You're coming off an emotional conference opening win. Now you play this game. Does it test the maturity?
I think so. And Trey mentioned, look, these are teenagers. They're 21, 22 years old. A lot of young guys in important positions for Penn State. So let's not get overconfident, guys. Let's make sure we get there. Now, look, UMass has played 3 games. The largest crowd they've played in front of was 33,000 fans. We're going to triple that size with the crowd. It's the kind of thing you want them wide-eyed. You want them looking around in that first quarter, and then you just punch them a few times and get a few balls in the end zone and get an early lead on a team like this and put them down early.
In TV terms, we affectionately call the next segment the G Block, our last one. It includes, upon further review with Fran Fisher, and our predictions as we continue on Blue White Tailgate, presented by Coors Light. our Andrew Callista at the game. We welcome everyone back, and you're saying, well, we've gone through the entire show. We haven't heard from our good friend Fran Fisher yet. We're about to, upon further review.
Let me tell you about Penn State's football history with UMass. There isn't any. But old Fran will keep you entertained with the Penn State UMass basketball tidbit. In 1975, I was charged with the responsibility of putting together a radio network for basketball, starting with the 1976-77 season. You probably don't remember because either you weren't born yet or didn't care and didn't listen. Big deal, got 8 stations. Anyway, our first network broadcast was at Umass. Curry Hicks Cage was the on-campus arena. Arena? That's a stretch. Cage is more like it. Good enough for Julius Erving, though. Now, my role in the broadcast was producer, director, engineer, cheerleader, scorekeeper, play-by-play announcer, and color announcer. Yep, one-man band with no harmonica. In a map case, I carried a line amp, telephone, headphones, microphone, stopwatch, scorebook, extension cord, 4 pencils, and 6 erasers. I made it through the broadcast, although the network stations probably struggled with my commercial cues. I gotta say, it was a success thanks to Jeff Miller, Calvin Jefferson, and their playmates, as the Nittany Lions came through with a 72-70 overtime win. For the WHVL Tailgate Show, this has been, upon further review, I'm Fran Fisher.
Ah, yes, Fran. I, too, many a game in Curry Hicks Cage. All right. So now we get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. You always seem to get the good.
I like the good because I think I'm good, right? And I kind of think about things as being like half full.
You're almost angelic.
I don't know about angelic, but the good is the Penn State defense. Through the first 3 games, ranked top 10 nationally in scoring. They're playing very, very well. If they don't pitch a shutout this week, I'd be shocked.
Bad, Indiana loses at Bowling Green. A shouldn't even be playing in Bowling Green. That game should have been in Indiana. And TCU beats Minnesota. The Big Ten still not quite finding its legs.
Ugly? I get ugly again. I get ugly. Well, look, that could be worse. That could be Charlie Strong, who has so much coaching to do that he has to teach his captain to not say, "We want to kick," when you win the coin toss. Against UCLA, the Bruins received the opening kickoff and the second half kickoff. And Charlie Strong has to go back to the drawing board and start with the coin toss, which they won, and then proceeded to kick the ball
And not only
away.
that, but the referee tried to help the kid. He
Right,
tried.
say, "Are you sure?"
Are you sure? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's, you know you have a long way to go. Okay. Top 25 games. Let's take a quick look around the top 25. Clemson, Florida State, big one last year. Florida State won big on their way to the national title. Florida plays at Alabama, haven't won there since '98. Oklahoma, West Virginia, that's a Big 12 game.
Oklahoma, number 4.
Yeah, I know. And good team right in the thick of it. Mississippi State at LSU. All right, your keys to the game.
Keys to the game are going to be, is Penn State going to come out and try to dominate UMass and to basically tell them they don't belong on the field, and can we establish a running game? I think that's going to be the key.
To me, my key to the game is quite simple. Maturity. You go out there, after going through 3 tough, hard-fought football games, especially 2 of the 3 tough, hard-fought games, you're in the prohibitive favorite position. Just go out, take care of business.
I'm going to be looking for 2 things. You guys mentioned his name off camera earlier, Zach Zwinak. I think it's important to get him going in this particular game, along with that running game, establish a little bit of power for that offensive line. And the other thing is some touchdown passes. Finish off the drive. Christian Hackenberg's been fantastic, but only 4 TD passes. I think he needs to find some receivers at pay dirt.
All right, so here it is, a 4 o'clock kickoff. Interesting, 4 o'clock. That's a great kickoff for fans because they tell you the later the kickoffs, the better. 4 o'clock's a pretty good time. We're looking forward to it. Final non-conference game before they hit the meat of the Big Ten schedule. For Trey, Todd, I'm Steve. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Coors Light.